I tell my sister. She has no idea how privileged she is, but she stands up and leaves the family dinner. The fork clattered against my plate, louder than I meant, and every head at the dinner table snapped toward me. I didn't care. My sister, Lily, was mid-sentence, whining about her impossible life, and I was done listening. For 27 years, I'd swallowed my words, but tonight, they burned too hot to keep down. We were gathered at Mom and Dad's, the same oak table we'd sat around since we were kids, the air thick with the scent of roasted chicken and tension. Lily, as always, was the star of her own show, oblivious to the shadows she cast on everyone else. Lily, you have no idea how privileged you are, I said, my voice slicing through her monologue about her latest job drama. Her eyes wide and blue like a summer sky, locked onto mine, but I didn't flinch. You complain about your boss, your apartment, your life, but you've never had to fight for anything. The room went still. Mom's hand froze on her wine glass. Dad's fork hovered midair. Lily's mouth parted, but no words came out. I should have stopped there, but the dam had broken. Years of resentment watching her glide through life while I clawed my way up poured out. You got the private school, the car at 16, the trust fund. I got community college and a bus pass. You think your problems are the end of the world, but you've never even touched the real world. Lily's chair scraped against the hardwood floor as she stood, her face a storm of hurt and defiance. You don't get to tell me what I've been through. Emma, she spat, her voice trembling. You think you're the only one who struggled? She grabbed her purse, her movements sharp, and stormed out, the front door slamming like a gunshot. Mom's voice broke the silence. Emma, that was too far. Her eyes were soft, pleading, but I saw the flicker of guilt there too. She knew I wasn't entirely wrong. Dad just stared at his plate, his silence louder than any words. I pushed my chair back, my appetite gone, and retreated to the porch. The cool night air a sharp contrast to the heat in my chest. Growing up, Lily was the golden child. She was the one with the perfect grades, the charming smile, the effortless grace that made teachers and neighbors adore her. I was the scrappy one, the one who worked 2 jobs through high school, who patched my own jeans because Mom and Dad were too busy paying for Lily's piano lessons. It wasn't their fault, not entirely. They were young when they had me, barely scraping by. By the time Lily came along, 5 years later, Dad's business had taken off, and she was born into a different world, one with opportunities I could only dream of. I never hated her for it. Not really, but the gap between us grew wider every year, and she never seemed to notice. She'd complain about her stressful internship while I was working night shifts at a diner to pay rent. She'd post pictures of her European gap year while I was taking night classes, praying my used laptop wouldn't crash before finals. I loved her, but her blindness to her own privilege was a wound that never healed. The porch creaked under my weight as I sat on the steps, staring at the quiet street. The stars were faint, drowned out by the city's glow, and I wondered if I'd finally gone too far. I hadn't meant to explode, but her endless complaints tonight about her toxic workplace and her unfair landlord had lit a fuse I didn't know was burning. I wanted her to see, just for a moment, how different our lives had been. The door creaked behind me, and I turned to see Dad, his hands shoved in his pockets. You okay, kid? He asked, his voice low. I shrugged, my throat tight. I didn't mean to ruin dinner. He sat beside me, the step groaning under his weight. You didn't ruin anything, but you hurt her, Emma. She's not as strong as you think. I scoffed, but it sounded more like a sob. She's got everything, Dad. She's never had to fight for it. He was quiet for a moment, his gaze fixed on the street. You're right. We gave her more than we could give you, and I'm sorry for that. But Lily's got her own battles, ones you don't see. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but the weight in his voice stopped me. Dad wasn't one for deep talks. If he was out here, it meant something. What battles, I asked, my voice softer now. He sighed, rubbing his hands together. She's always felt like she's living in your shadow. Emma, you're the tough one, the one who never quits. She thinks she'll never measure up. I stared at him, stunned. Lily, and insecure. The girl who had the world handed to her. It didn't make sense, but the look in Dad's eyes told me it was true. I thought of her face at dinner, the way her defiance had cracked, revealing something raw underneath. The next morning, I found myself at Lily's apartment, a small, trendy place in the city she could afford because of her cushy job. I knocked, half expecting her to slam the door in my face. When she opened it, her eyes were red, her hair pulled into a messy bun. She didn't say anything, just stepped aside to let me in. I'm sorry, I said, the words heavy but necessary. I shouldn't have said it like that, but I meant it. Lily, you don't see how easy you've had it. She crossed her arms and leaning against the counter. You think my life's perfect? You think I don't know you got the short end of the stick? I see it. Emma, I've always seen it. Then why do you act like your problems are the end of the world? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Because they're my problems, she snapped, her eyes flashing. I'm not you. I'm not strong like you. I feel like I'm drowning half the time, and I know I don't have the right to complain, not compared to you, but that doesn't make it hurt less. Her words hit me like a punch. I'd spent so long resenting her that I'd never considered she might be struggling too, not with money or survival, but with herself. We stood there, the silence stretching between us, until I finally spoke. I didn't know you felt like that. She laughed, a bitter sound. Of course you didn't. You're too busy carrying the world on your shoulders to notice. I wanted to argue, but she wasn't wrong. I'd been so focused on my own fight that I'd missed hers. We talked for hours that day, peeling back layers we'd never shown each other. She told me about the pressure she felt to be perfect, the fear that she'd never live up to Mom and Dad's expectations or mine. I told her about the nights I'd cried myself to sleep, exhausted from working and studying, wishing I could have just a piece of the life she had. By the time I left, we weren't fixed, but we were honest. For the first time, I saw my sister not as a spoiled princess, but as someone trying to navigate her own storms. We made a pact to talk more, to listen, to stop assuming we knew each other's lives. Weeks later, we were back at Mom and Dad's for another dinner. The table was set the same, the chicken just as fragrant, but the air felt lighter. Lily laughed at one of Dad's terrible jokes, and I caught myself smiling. We weren't perfect, but we were trying, and maybe that was enough. What do you think? Was Emma right to call out Lily's privilege? Or did she cross a line? Should Lily have stayed to talk it out? Or was walking away the right move? Share your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. And